This man right here served on the Birmingham police force and has over 21 years of experience. And you know his face from my favorite hit TV show, The First 48. Please welcome Detective Chris Anderson. Hey, what up, Chris?
Good morning.
Man, thank you for joining us this morning, man. We got a whole lot this morning. We finna hit you with a lot of stuff, so I know you're ready. And right off the top, let's talk. We was having this argument among us, about the incident in Columbus, Ohio, where 16-year-old Michaela Bryant was killed by a police officer after she approached another female with a knife. In your opinion, could or should this situation have been handled differently?
Yeah, I think it definitely could have been handled differently. You know, this case is so emotional with it just happening, man. Being a 15-year-old child, man, this is one of our future leaders in our community, and she's lost her life. But there were a lot of adults that I saw there through the video that this should have gone a completely different way. I think that the adults in this case should have intervened. She should have never been allowed outside. There were a lot of things that could have happened to prevent any of the shooting. Now, when it becomes to the shooting itself, I think there will be they will have a long haul of a road when it comes to charging the officer in this case, because he has a duty to protect another person from being killed. If he sees a woman approaching or a child approaching someone with a knife, he has a duty to protect that other person. But I just think that there should have been some interjection prior to this even escalating to the situation where he had to make a decision of shooting or not shooting.
Now, everybody has been talking about the George Floyd case. Now, Black and Blue has been trending on Twitter. Were you surprised at the amount of officers that came forward to testify in the Chauvin trial?
So, was I surprised of the amount of officers that came forward and testified? Yes, I was. But there has been a lot of officers, myself included, and I know several officers that spoke out against George Floyd and his attack. I'm sorry, not George Floyd, but Derek Chauvin, and the way he murdered George Floyd. There have been a lot of police officers that have talked about how his tactics, the way that they happened, what happened, the situation itself. There have been a lot of people that have spoken out against it, but I was rather surprised of the amount of officers that testified, and I think that's going to be a trend going forward.
Go ahead, Eva.
Well, I wanted to go back to the shooting bias term that we're starting to hear a lot, and if that officer should have reacted differently. So from your perspective, why is it that white gunmen are more often able to be apprehended, but the same de-escalation tactics are not being used on black people, on children that might have a gun or not?
Eve, I think that's honestly just the disconnect between our cultures. If we're constantly portrayed as a violent group of people, and you have a person that's working in law enforcement that doesn't really understand the culture, then sometimes they'll respond incorrectly, and that's not right. It's not right at all, and I'm not trying to make excuses for it, but I think the issue that we need to resolve is a lot more bias training in law enforcement. We need that. It's absolutely necessary and imperative. Every time we train with law enforcement, most law enforcement agencies train once or twice a year in firearms, and maybe they'll have one quick reading of a bias procedure during roll call. That's not right. We should have a lot more bias training. We should be doing 8 hours of training, understanding of the cultures, understanding of the biases that exist in law enforcement, and putting to the test what can be done in order for us to not see this happen ever again.
I wasn't ready. Well, the officer now in this Adam Toledo shooting up in Chicago.
Oh, my God.
Right.
My mic wasn't up. He'd only been on the force for like 5 years, right? Now, he already has 3 misconduct complaints in a short time. So, Chris, why is it that, the officers who end up as shooters often have these long histories of misconduct, but they still on the force?
You know, I don't understand that either. I think that has more to do with the agency, but I think that's why there's been a huge push as of late for this national registry for resignations in law enforcement and the complaints that have come about to different officers. I think that is one of the areas that we need to really focus on moving forward. We need a national registry. We need to know if this law enforcement officer who has acted on the fringe of the law or acted outside of the lines of the law, if he has been fired from another department. That's imperative. Right. And also, I also think that we need more deeper psychological testing, because look, a lot of guys that go into law enforcement, they have psychological issues. It could have come from life itself, or it could have come from experiences. But we PTSD, do need more deeper psychological testing.
Hey, I wanted to ask you this. Brad and I, we was having a debate. Brad felt like that. What were you saying, Brad? That the officers could have pulled up and shot her. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I was saying, was it possible for him to just shoot her in the leg or the foot or the bottom or anything besides her chest? I mean, they're saying they're trained to shoot their chest, but 4 times, like anything to stop.
Or a taser. A taser.
I think the taser was too far away. But go ahead, detective.
So yeah, you know, when these situations happen so quickly, you only have enough time to react, and you usually react in the way that you're trained. Law enforcement officers are not trained. We're not trained to wound a threat. You are trained to stop a threat, and you know, asking a law enforcement officer to bring a taser to against a person that has a knife is just that's a little. It's hard to fathom that you have to protect yourself and that person that you are in that situation. You have to protect yourself and the person that she was stabbing. You have a duty to do that. So, you know, asking them I would suggest, this is what I think y'all should do. I mean, if you really want to know, there are a lot of law enforcement agencies that are more than willing to put you through some shoot or no shoot training. And if you've seen it, it really helps to understand how fast these situations happen. They happen extremely, extremely fast, and you have to make a judgment. So you really don't have time to think. So I would suggest that if you have questions about whether or not a person should have shot in the leg or something to that effect, I would suggest you go out and try to see if your agency, your local agency, offers some sort of shoot or no shoot training.
Hey, Detective Anderson,
how hard it is.
Detective Anderson, I got to ask you this. Speak to me, because you know you and I, we real close. We talk all the time. But I want you to speak, give some understanding, because there's a lot of people out there that absolutely black officers and white officers, just because they're the police, some of the things that the black police officers have to deal with, because it's just a thing, because there's a lot of police officers that do good community service, because we go out and do the Christmas thing every year with the Birmingham Police Department and stuff, and I see guys getting up out of their bed, coming out here to help and do service. What's some of the stuff that the black officers have to deal with the vibe just being bad with police officers? That's really, trying to do a good job and trying to protect and serve.
Yeah. So, look, I've been a law enforcement officer now, man. I've been in law enforcement for 26 years, man. I've been around law enforcement my entire life because my mom was a police officer. So here's the thing that I see, and it has been rough. It has been extremely rough for black men in law enforcement. So, but we have to do more. We have to do more. We can no longer sit around and watch as our people, because we're black people first. We are people of color first. And that's never going to change. I can retire from 10 different departments, and that will never change. I'm going to always be a black man. But we have to do more in our profession in order to call out misconduct in departments. We have to. We can no longer sit on the sidelines because our children are being murdered.
Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sorry. But
no.
You know how passionate I am about this.
Oh, yeah.
You know how passionate I am about it. But I just want to see us do better. So to all of the African Americans, to all of the people of color that are in law enforcement, we have to do more because it has to stop.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, Chris, thank you, bro. Hey, Chris, and thank you to you and all of the police officers all over the country that's really out here trying to serve the community and protect and serve. If don't nobody else say thank you, we appreciate what you do. We really do. And some of the bad cops just make it so bad for the good cops that's out here trying to really do a good job and trying to protect and serve, man. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Hey, Detective Anderson, how can people follow you?
Listen, you can follow me on all social media. Up under Detective Chris Anderson. I'm on all platforms, and I do a lot more. I talk a lot more about police conduct and the things that we can do as a society in order to bring us closer together. Rick, I want to thank you for inviting me. I thank everybody else on the show for everything that y'all are doing for this community and for us as a nation, because we need a lot more healing.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Chris Anderson, Rickey Smiley Morning Show.